One of the biggest problems we face today is figuring out which economic system is best for society. I want to offer my own contribution to this discourse and explain why I think the current system is just not working for anyone. Although we have a long way to go as a society before we can transition to a model that works for everyone, I think if we can begin to outline ways in which the current system is obviously wrong, then we can actually start to imagine like exactly what needs to change in reality. So for the next hour and a half, I'm going to be dissecting the current economic status quo and outlining why I think that a lot of the current problems are going to likely continue to get worse if we don't change anything. I believe this should be pretty easy to follow along, even if you don't know a lot about economics. And I guess last thought, just maybe don't leave those typical straw man arguments people make against socialism, because they might just vanish on you. All right, let's go.
So, there has to be a philosophical basis for the free market. This is why you see a lot of people just like autistically defending it, like being very Puritan about it. Like, you know, we can't even save these necessary companies like airlines and stuff. Like, I mean, in their philosophical notion, like, it makes sense for them to fail, but at the same time, like, there's no functional reason to allow that to happen, because outside of extenuating circumstances, the company is functional and profitable, right?
Correct.
The airline?
Yeah.
So...
I mean, to a certain extent.
Yeah, to a certain extent. Like, if it's a bank and they... it's just natural economic fluctuations,
like, Bank
but
of
they're
America
still...
just fired a certain percentage of their people.
Well, good. I mean, we don't even really need banks. There's no reason for them to exist.
I mean, we do
But
need
let's
banks.
not go on that tangent.
Okay.
So something like an airline has material value that is consistent outside of, say, the pandemic, right? So something like that should, regardless of what these people think, and the reason I'm talking about this first is because
these people?
People who are free market Puritans, and there's a lot of them.
Am I one of them?
I don't think so. I don't think you have a consistent ideology. Like most people, honestly. They don't have consistent ideologies. In fact, that's what I'm trying to kind of illustrate here, is because you said, you know, maybe we should have some minimal level of socialism, right?
Yeah.
But the philosophical notion behind the free market is the only way it can really be a true system of capitalism, laissez-faire. I might be pronouncing it wrong. I always
Baba Booey.
Laissez-faire.
Laissez-faire?
Yeah, easy.
The only way that can really exist is if there's a total free market, and the government doesn't do
Baba Booey.
And my grandpa says this all the time, regulations kill the market, government interference kills the market, etc., etc. But with the specific purpose of something like an airline, it's pretty obvious
that there needs to be regulation.
That there is a functional reason that the government would be
involved,
keeping them alive.
Yeah.
Because, you know, theoretically, we assume the pandemic is going to end at some point, right?
It pretty much
it's pretty much ended, yeah. But at that point, we don't really know that, but we're assuming that, okay?
Correct.
So you assume, we assume the functional utility of an airline company. No one is going to stop using airlines indefinitely because of the pandemic once it's over. So we don't want the airline companies to go out of business. Maybe they should temporarily stop making a ton of profit, and you know, the people who work for the airline company and even run the airline company should maybe even be provided some level of government money, UBI, sure, in order to sustain themselves, so they personally don't have to suffer a great deal. Maybe not as much as if they were working.
well, basically mostly like the companies that are within the airport system. Because you would still need like people to fly people, you know. I mean, maybe not as much, but
Right, well,
they could still fly.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, there's
exports.
probably still going to be some use of it and all that, but they probably won't be profitable. Is why they need the government bailouts.
I don't see why they're, you know, their
If
income
it's just
change.
if it's just a what's the word? Commercial
Distribution.
there's a specific word. Non-industrial purpose.
Labor.
Consumer.
Okay.
If it's a consumer purpose market and the consumers can't access it, they don't make a profit. Okay. So, we don't want them to go under, so functionally it makes sense for the government to keep them alive so that when the pandemic or whatever event ends, they can still continue functioning. If we don't do this, then basically you have to allow them to go out of business, and then you create a new business that would have to like recreate infrastructure or like buy out the past infrastructure. But like, why should the company really have to go out of business and like have someone else take over their entire brand just because there was some extenuating circumstance like the pandemic? They didn't decide. Yeah, it shouldn't be that way. Like, the free market should not be so free that someone can just take someone's entire market because there's a pandemic.
Well, I mean, if somebody innovates something.
If they innovate something, sure, but if the market just stays the same, like, there's no... It's actually like a disincentive for companies to want to function properly because they see that this can happen.
The way that I see it, it's that a company would want to work harder to make more money and keep themselves
There's no
afloat,
amount of work they can do that's going to prevent the...
But they would want to innovate more to keep themselves afloat and, like, their employees. Like, if I'm a company and I'm trying to compete against other people, then I'm definitely going to do, like, my best to, you know...
Okay, like, again, that's fine, but given the circumstance that a new company who wants to take their market value, market share, comes in and doesn't innovate anything new.
I mean, that's kind of like, you're like, if you think about it in basics of, like, say, restaurants, that's kind of like...
Like, there's always a situation that could arise, so anyone could capitalize on this notion of a future pandemic by inventing something right now, and then when the future pandemic hits, a new one...
So you're saying, like, we should
let
just
me
have,
finish.
Okay.
When the future pandemic hits, they would, then they could take over the market. And that'd be valid. They could do that, right? That's,
Okay.
I think, what you're trying to say. It's like, you know, this could like, another company snatching the market could incentivize the current company to innovate something.
Yes.
But there's just as much incentive to innovate the thing now.
Yeah, that's true. But also, like, what I'm trying to ask you, if, like, are you saying that we should just have centralized, like, companies?
No. I'm just trying to make a basic case here that, like, there is a utilitarian purpose for government bailouts to happen sometimes.
But at the same time, like, we should also have the right to innovate or create something or take over a market if we can outperform another company.
Yeah, that's basically how, like...
Capitalism works?
Yeah, I'm not denying that, like, innovation can occur within capitalism. I'm just... Okay, let me get back to, like, the main point I was trying to illustrate here. So if we can illustrate that a government bailout is in some sense necessary, then we can start to move towards the case that the free market as a whole is not necessarily an inherent good 100% of the time. And if we can make that philosophical claim, then we can open up avenues for potentially improving society with things that are not purely free market based.
Or, you know, companies could hire people and then make mergers to, like, a company that does the same thing could, like, make a merger with another company and innovate together.
Sure. I mean, that can happen. A lot of times companies don't want to, like, concede, say, half of their market share just to allow an innovation to occur. But something like that can happen. It's essentially what happened with Google buying YouTube.
Yeah.
And that's all fine. Like, capitalism can
And I
innovate.
mean, it's been better since Google
But-
bought YouTube.
There's a philosophical basis right now that the free market is the absolute inherent good. There should be no government interventionism. And I just want to explain that's just, like, provably not true.
I feel like there should be, but like to a degree where we're allowed to,
Yeah, like, people get very autistically, like, dead
Please
focused.
Stop using the term.
No, I'm not going to stop using the word autistically. It has to do with, like, an obsession with a certain level of scrutiny or rigor or puritanism.
Okay, but I'm autistic. I don't have OCD.
I'm autistic.
Okay, you have OCD. I don't have OCD.
I don't have OCD.
Yeah, you do.
I'm not diagnosed with
totally
OCD.
You're not diagnosed, but I know you do.
Okay, well, go get your degree.
Whatever.
Okay. So with that basis, we can start to talk about other things where the free market is maybe not the ideal. So the thing we were talking about before was that there may be certain situations that if we were to automate fully, that is, like, basically, this is purely a hypothetical to illustrate a greater point. If there was a industry where we made it so that the technology was so optimized that AI did everything. Let's say Amazon, they fire every single Amazon employee, even like the people who do deliveries. Like, let's say we set up a system.
They can't fire every employee. They still
Not
need
right
tech
now.
workers.
What?
They still need tech workers for tech support, unless they develop like a better AI.
Again, this is a hypothetical.
version. Yeah.
And also, it doesn't functionally matter, because if you can eliminate all of the physical labor, then that's enough till it reaches the
They
point
still need
where
somebody to oversee the work production.
it reaches a point where there is so little labor contribution from the mass population that it doesn't make sense for one person to be reaping 100% of the benefits of ownership of, in the Marxian sense, private property.
Well, I mean, I disagree with you. Like, if somebody created something, I feel like they should
Okay.
reap the benefits.
Yes, they should reap benefits. I believe that as well. That's how you spur innovation. But let me get on with the hypothetical. So, in Amazon, let's say every warehouse, you eliminate every employee who is doing physical labor, replace it with robots. AI technology is now perfected in that realm.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Bezos still owns the company, but he doesn't have to pay anyone
Right.
under this hypothetical. Okay? So this is why people are afraid of UBI, and they are afraid of losing their jobs to the capacity that they feel like if they don't contribute anything themselves,
They lose their purpose.
they lose their agency in society. If I don't represent anything of meaning, then
Well, then
I have no personal power. I have no ability to influence anything. Nobody should care about what I say, etc.,
That's
etc.
not true. I mean, you can always make yourself somebody of power and somebody of influence.
You can, but not everyone can always do
Yes,
things
not everybody
like that.
will always do that, but
And
still.
people still want to feel like they live in a democratic
They-
society.
We will live in a democratic society. It's just that we will have more opportunities. Like, the way that I see it is that if you have UBI, you could literally have more potential.
I'm just saying the current fear of UBI is that everyone's just going to make like a small amount of money and we're just going to all become irrelevant and we're not going to have any say in democracy because like we don't contribute anything, we don't have any economic bearings or weight or influence of
But
our
that's
own.
not true. We definitely can contribute something. We can definitely have some economic,
If everyone's just making a bare minimum,
Yes,
and-
but people are ambitious. People aren't just going to be satisfied. I mean, most people won't be satisfied. I don't know.
we're
maybe
concerning ourselves with most people right now. In a democratic society, you don't need everyone to contribute some amazing innovation, nor should you expect to in any society. That's just not really possible.
Yeah, but I know-
you want to believe that everyone can contribute something. That's just not meaningfully possible. Okay?
I get that, but at the same time, I feel like people are greedy, essentially, like down to the basics. We're ambitious, we are avaricious, we want more. So they eventually will be like,
Some people will eventually innovate things.
Yes.
That's a fact, yes,
But,
I understand that.
like,
but
for the ones
most
that don't want,
people are not capable. I don't think there are even, like, that many innovations that we could create in material reality where every single person would be able to innovate.
Yeah, but
something.
they can have like small businesses, or they can invest in the stock
And
market.
if there were, I think we would reach a point where everything is so freaking optimized and incredible that like none of this would even matter.
I still think that
let me get back to the hypothetical. We're tangentializing too much.
But can I just say something? I think that we should have like a collective where like we can vote on company decisions and also like government decisions, even if we do have UBI.
You think that we should have collective voting of corporate decisions?
Yes.
That's socialism.
It doesn't matter what it's
literally called. No, it doesn't. That's a point I really want to hammer on. Is it doesn't matter what you call it. Everyone wants to call it socialism because they have all these notions in their head of what socialism should be or shouldn't be. But really, I think the definition is fairly fluid. I think of socialism just as what brings the majority of society to a place where we don't fall prey to exploitation by people who have an enormous amount of capital. We don't have to make other people's lives worse just because other people contribute something.
Yes, because other people are capable of doing better. However, I wanted to add to that how you once said something about like voting online and like being able to do that. Yeah, we should definitely be able to do that and contribute ideas.
Yeah, right? I mean, I'm not an expert on crypto, but I assume you could do something with like a blockchain, have people sign up once people actually appreciate the technology fully.
An identifying ID. And also, I think like eventually we should all merge into like one world country.
That'd be nice, but that can't happen under capitalism. You know why?
Why?
Because capitalism
it involves
relies upon exploitation of foreign labor.
But also competition. Well, actually, this kind of changing in the United States right now, especially.
No, it's not. I can give you a million examples of why not.
I'm just saying that if we had UBI, universally, not just like America, like you said, like people who work the hours that they want. And we wouldn't have to exploit anybody.
Yeah, but again, at that point, you're basically reaching socialism.
But we would have like AI and technology that does most of the work as well eventually.
Like all I want is like, can we as a society reach a point where people don't feel like their labor's being exploited, they have no power, where where Jeff Bezos can make enough money in a year where you could work millions of years and not reach that level of income.
Coming back to your point about like capping somebody's income, like the CEO or something.
Oh, like a maximal income?
Yeah, like
I don't want to get into that too much right now. That's getting too specific. Okay, I want to stay focused on UBI.
I know, but I wanted to like say like something like, what if like Jack's idea actually works? Like we can like lengthen like lifespans and stuff like that. Like
lengthen lifespans.
Say like immortal.
You're getting way too theoretical for me right now.
Okay, I'm just saying.
I just want to function on the current material reality and theoreticals that illustrate like why we shouldn't be afraid of UBI, and also why UBI essentially leads to something resembling socialism if it's done right. Because people's fear is authoritarianism will result if you pay everyone a very small amount and their contributions are not meaningful.
Okay.
Like the reason that the French peasants won the French Revolution basically is they were the ones who were necessary, right?
Well, obviously.
Because they were the ones who were physically doing stuff.
Correct.
What if they weren't physically doing stuff?
They would be irrelevant.
They'd be irrelevant, and that's the fear, is that the French Revolution is going to be turned in on itself. We're going to reach a point technologically with AI, with automation, where the proletariat, the peasantry, is actually the irrelevant ones, and the only ones who will actually matter are the ones who have centralized control.
Okay, but at the same time, we're humans. We don't really have, like, a reason to like be doing anything. Like land should just kind of like be free, you know, like go wherever
Baba Booey.
you want, do whatever
Baba Booey.
you want. It's just like technically we're just more intelligent animals. Our only purpose is to like really just exist and like reproduce,
Well,
basically.
you're getting into like the idea of positive freedoms, which is an important idea. And that's kind of the fear with authoritarianism, is that if you...
We should also have the right to not reproduce, you know.
Sure. The fear of people under regimes of authoritarianism is that their voices won't be heard. Maybe they will have a baseline level of freedom, but they won't have mobility. Like the American dream is all about the mobility of being able to raise
From
up.
being poor.
But
Yeah.
if the economy becomes corporately centralized, monopolistic, and let me just say antitrust laws mean nothing
Isn't
in
monopoly
today's...
like illegal?
Yeah, antitrust laws prevent monopolies. That means nothing today. There is no functional difference between having Uber and Lyft and just having Lyft.
Yes.
There's no reason. We don't need a CVS next to a Walgreens, etc., etc.
Yeah, that's completely true. But I mean, that's incentivizes competition.
So, yeah, people are afraid of UBI because they worry that it will take away their agency and their relevancy.
Mm-hmm.
And that will lead to a corporate autocracy.
Yeah, and an existential crisis.
So the basic solution to that is, and this is like the kind of last-ditch solution
The what?
in my mind, last-ditch solution.
Oh, okay.
That is, like, it shouldn't actually get to this point, but if we reach a point, and again, this is just a hypothetical to illustrate why you need to eventually stop, in the Marxian sense, private property of corporations. Just let me talk, please.
I haven't said anything.
You're about to talk?
I just breathed.
You breathed very aggressively.
Because I had an idea, but I wasn't going to say anything.
Okay. So, again, Amazon warehouses, right? They get set up in a way, everything's automated, no physical workers, not even delivery drivers, that gets automated too, right?
Uh-huh.
It could happen.
Okay.
Very theoretically, that could happen. There's very strong probability. But Jeff Bezos still owns everything, right?
Okay.
And then what does he do? Does he...
He's no longer the CEO. Does he still have company shares?
What?
He's no longer the CEO. Does he still have company shares? Does he step down?
Does he still have company shares?
Yeah, like, does he have any, like, shareholder rights?
Irrelevant.
To make
The point is he
decisions.
still owns the company.
Okay.
The company is still profitable, but there are no workers under him. It's just him. He
Okay.
becomes a nation of Amazon. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
This is a very basic way to illustrate why someone should not have ownership of the company that is wholly outside of the collective ownership. Because if he's just soaking up the profits eternally, and maybe someone innovates something, and he pays them like $1 million,
Cool.
and then he just keeps enjoying that, and billions of dollars over time from
there
this
should
one
be a
innovation.
contract where, you know, the
But
person makes more money.
what functional purpose does it serve for him to be the one soaking up the profits? At
The
that
fact
point?
that he had the starting idea.
He did, and we should reward them for that. But there's a maximal limit, I think, where that reward incentive has a utilitarian purpose for driving innovation. Once he's just soaking in all the money, why does he give it?
Baba Booey.
Like, he's going to have so much money under this theoretical where everything's AI, where he doesn't have to do anything. He can just have basically infinite money.
He can hire people to make ideas for him.
Yes, but you gotta understand, this is a hypothetical to illustrate a greater point.
Yes.
And why does it really matter?
Pika.
Oh, hello, that was a cat. Why does it really matter if he's paying someone, say, $60,000 to work on improvements for the website, when he's the one who enjoys all the benefits from that job.
Because
Like
perhaps he should have, like, the people should protect themselves and have contracts where they, make him pay money to, for, like, their ideas.
Yeah, he should have to pay them.
Yeah, and they should defend themselves with contracts.
And I think that they should also be given, like, this is not like an ideal, but like in that situation, maybe they should get a stake in the company for contributing to the long-term benefits of that company.
Exactly, but you put
That's
that in
a real way
contract.
to incentivize
you
people.
put that in a contract.
But then you start to break up the ownership of Amazon among people who actually improve Amazon. And this is what a co-op is meant to do.
Yes.
It's to allow
fine.
everyone to communicate their ideas for the optimization of the company.
And
like a lot of companies today, especially this is obvious with video game companies, they're basically just pumping out what they know is going to make them profitable.
Yes.
And if someone had an innovative idea, they would get stifled. They would get shut down. Because this has happened with so many different companies.
Mm-hmm.
And they've just ended up
Right,
going out of business.
I've heard that they don't care about, like, the lower employees' opinions.
Yeah, so like employees have no real incentive to want to improve the company.
Which is why I'm saying.
And the CEOs have no real incentive to innovate because, okay, first of all, they're not like incentivizing
Yeah, they
other
have
people
plateaued.
to encourage that innovation.
Yeah.
But they've plateaued, exactly. They've reached a point where innovation could actually be harmful to their business model
Yes.
because they want to keep appealing to what they already have instead of creating something new and creative and innovative.
Yeah, kind of like Apple, how they just, like...
Apple 13, Apple 14, like...
Yes, my phone, my phone's like an iPhone.
Your phone,
6S.
yeah, that's a
They're
perfect example.
making
Your
the-
phone
the
is no
16
longer going to be valid.
Yeah, for the 16 iOS, they're no longer gonna let it update, so it's like my phone.
And who does that serve? That doesn't serve the people in any meaningful
which
way.
I'm saying, like, they definitely could, like, be using, like, plant-fueled batteries instead of, like, lithium batteries that just kind of, like, become, like how we can barely even change the
I'm
battery.
sure you have a great idea, but unless we have co-ops, you can't really voice your idea in any
Yes, I
significant
know,
way.
but I'm saying that they don't give
Baba Booey.
about, like, the people that are buying their products. They don't care about improving their products. They don't
It's
care
purely
about...
a theoretical, maybe not ideal, but maybe every time someone contributes a meaningful idea that increases the long-term productivity and profitability of a company, they should get a stake in that company.
But
if someone
they need
invents something, they should get a stake.
Like, look, I'm telling
That's
you.
how Shark Tank works.
Yes, but they need a contract. If not, they're not protected.
Okay, you're getting into like legal ideas, but like.
But everything is legal, technically.
Okay.
Also, I want to get into the topic of, like, real estate with you because
We can
Okay.
talk about that later. Okay, I'll just bring it up later.
Okay.
So, Jeff Bezos makes infinite money off of a purely automated Amazon. Everyone else just has to suffer getting a minimum amount of UBI, and this all functions to support Jeff Bezos' incentive to make Amazon a better place. Like that.
That sounds like bull.
Baba Booey.
It sounds like total bull.
Baba Booey.
And people will say that this is cronyism, etc.,
What's
etc.
cronyism?
It's a theoretical excuse for why capitalism should be working.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they try to say it's about, like, the fact that the free market is not 100% free.
Mm-hmm.
It should be. We've already philosophically outlined there are exceptions at the very least. And so this model of purely automation is basically just meant to show that basically in that situation, the profits from Amazon should not be contributing purely to Jeff Bezos' pocketbook. They should be contributing to the greater welfare of society. And one of the main arguments I make in favor of the notions of socialism is that you reach a point where incentivizing companies to do good is no longer like improving the world as much as merely the social welfare that could be created by that profit money could be improving the world, right? So
Yes.
Amazon's making so much money right now. You could say on one hand that innovates or incentivizes Jeff Bezos to innovate, etc. But on the other hand, is that innovation so necessary and so relevant to society today that that money couldn't already be meaningfully repurposed for making the lives of all of the world better? I would argue that
but like,
no, it's very. There's a lot you could do with that money right now to make people live meaningful and dignified lives.
I mean, yeah, but do they really have like a duty? Like, do they have like?
Amazon doesn't. That's the problem.
That's the thing. Like I'm saying, it would have to be something that either comes from like taxes from the government, or like the kindness of their heart. If they
yeah, but the free market should never rely on philanthropy because it's antithetical to philanthropy, right? Because why would if you need the profit motive for people to innovate, why would you want them to also donate money? Because that money is not going towards their innovation and their incentive. So you're basically conceding, in a way.
Which is what I'm saying. Like, we should just increase government taxes.
You should what?
Increase government taxes.
Sure. I mean, that's a good step forward, and you can basically illustrate.
But to a point where it's not like ridiculous. Like I think.
You can basically illustrate that there should be principles of socialism within society, within capitalism, and I would also say you don't need. If capitalism is functioning properly, you don't need to do anything to institute socialism. And this is my crazy claim that I know socialists will hate, but I believe very strongly that, like with my metaverse idea of basically decentralizing media, right? Like that's something that could functionally improve media.
Did I give you the idea?
You gave me the idea for the title. Not the idea previously, like the videos I made. So, basically, as long as capitalism remains innovative and remains having at least a modicum of empathy towards common people, and people are still standing up for their desire for freedom, etc., then you should reach a point following capitalism's innovations that you reach something resembling socialism.
In order to have
as a natural process.
In order to actually have empathy, we would have to have a restructuring of society.
Yeah, I mean already there's so much. I've posted many videos about the effective slave labor we have currently.
But I was gonna say especially for the future generations, we should have classes or in parenting and psychology, because I feel like there's a lot of damage done to children that they eventually grow without empathy.
Sure. I mean a lot of people I've heard make the argument basically that the lower right extreme quadrant of the political compass does not actually exist in a way that would be compatible with humanity and the fact that we have some level of empathy, even if it's just for people that are directly.
Take me for example. I'm a centrist.
Basically.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say you're a centrist. I'd say you're just someone who places certain priorities regardless of their partisan value. You still believe in certain things.
I have my priorities straight at least.
You don't really care whether it's
exactly. That's the point that I'm trying to get. Apathy. I'm somebody who's very empathetic, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm also very apathetic.
Yeah.
You're
a shark in the business sense.
You told me once that I had total unrelenting apathy.
In the business sense.
Yes. I definitely sympathize for people. I definitely, empathize with people. But at the same time, it's coming from the background that I come from,
Well, let's just put it this way. If you were Jeff Bezos and you had his fortune, you would probably repurpose it for some kind of general welfare.
Yes, because
Or you would at least,
but only
like-
because like I'm the type of person that I am.
You would at least try to innovate something into the market
Yeah.
that might benefit you, but also benefits other people.
Yeah, which is what I've been trying to
Meanwhile, Jeff Bezos' space penis
But-
meme.
do. Space penis. What?
Yeah, no, you don't know. You should
No, I
know
don't-
about that.
I don't-
People know about this.
I don't
worry.
internet like you do.
Don't worry. So, basically, Jeff Bezos' capacity to improve the world is not being functionally improved by his billions upon billions of profits he's making, and this basic argument being made by free market capitalists that we shouldn't do anything with his wealth is not meant to improve society as much as it is to create a sect of elites within the economy.
So, what do you think which should be done instead?
What should be done instead? Well, I think the easiest way to get over this hurdle where someone's just basically soaking up profits, they become the parasite.
Okay.
Like, they say that, people on welfare are parasites. Like, no, Jeff Bezos is functionally on the welfare of his employees.
Yes.
Like, they have the power. They can, as
In a way.
in a French Revolution way, they can overthrow him at any moment simply by protesting. And in a way, they're
He's
kind
not
of...
the CEO, you know that?
Jeff Bezos is not the CEO?
I'm pretty sure he stepped down.
Then who's the CEO?
Some other dude.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever. The names don't matter. In fact, philosophically, I would say the point that names don't matter, contributes to this notion. Like, we shouldn't obsess ourselves with the person's identity. Like, we want to create this idea of, a megalithic person, an Iron Man, the Uberman, as,
The Uberman.
Nietzsche pointed out.
Uh-huh.
And our reliance on that idea, if you were to keep innovating, right, just keep pumping out banger after banger of great ideas
Like
and
me.
amazing things he can do
Yeah.
to improve Amazon's effectiveness, improve the world, I would say, yeah, whatever. Let's reward him for that,
Yeah.
sure. But as long as he's just basically a placeholder,
Yeah.
that's what this entire idea is central to. When a person becomes just a placeholder, and they're not actually meaningfully making people's lives better by the incentive of profit,
Yeah.
I think at that point, which is demonstrated very vividly under a purely AI system of Amazon,
Yeah.
where there are no labor employees.
But that doesn't mean that they won't one day make an idea or an innovation that will help.
One day, sure, then reward
And
them then.
also, it's not like
But
you
really,
constantly know what.
Do you think Jeff Bezos is all that smart?
No.
No, exactly. It's most likely if you were to open up Amazon in a co-op kind of way, in a central planning kind of way, even where you were to specifically analyze from the perspective of multiple people who you could pay to optimize Amazon's delivery system, optimize their technology, optimize their AI. You can pay all these people to do that, and that'd be great. Big thumbs up. I would love to see people do that. But as it stands currently, I would say even under this system, there is a cap that you should be rewarding anyone for making a certain innovation.
I still don't agree with you. I agree that we should help
So,
other people.
so Jeff Bezos should just go unrequited, just infinite money glitch.
I'm sorry, but like I said, I don't agree with you, and I still think that if people have
He's
money,
not contributing anything
I
meaningful.
still think that if people have money, they should help other people, but at the same time,
But you can't require that of them under a free market system.
yes, but you can do it. Government implications and regulations.
Sure.
However, I don't feel like.
But do you
Okay,
realize,
but-
once you establish that, you've basically conceded that, yes, we should be doing things to limit our incentivization via the profit incentive that do not contribute meaningfully to this person improving the world.
I'm just saying, nobody owes anybody anything.
That's actually not true. You can illustrate this very simply. Society as a whole is a community project.
but technically humans don't owe anybody anything.
Well, that's kind of a straw man, because you're creating this idea where, like, there's a society that exists in your head where there are people who are just not doing Baba Booey at all, and I don't think that can...
Like, I feel like that kind of, like, ideology where, like, we have to expect something from somebody, that's kind of ridiculous, because, like, I don't expect anybody from anything, you know? I don't...
Right, but then you pave the way for what I would call the fascism of the corporations.
I feel like people have the
Let me
ability...
talk about this.
Okay.
This is the bottom right-hand quadrant of the political compass, which many people, again, argue does not exist where there's functional empathy. So, under that quadrant, a company basically has free reign to do whatever it wants. This means private police. This means that there is no regulation.
They're called security guards.
Yeah, I mean, on a low level, they exist already.
Yeah.
This means, like, there's no regulations on what can and can't be done for a corporation to be profitable. Mm-hmm. They can pollute and destroy the environment. They can have child slaves. And I would say you're framing that we don't owe anyone anything. We do, because as a society we need to meaningfully contribute to each other's lives. And to do that, we need to have certain limitations on what a company can and can't do.
The only reason we even have a society is because we collectively decided that we needed a society.
Yeah, but, like, that's been done. Like, we can't undo society.
I mean, anarchy.
Anarchy is widely misunderstood, but I don't want to get into that right now. So the fascism of the corporation becomes a total free market, whereby you can have child slavery, you can basically, you could put people into a meat grinder for innovation and just, like, not significantly
human
commensurate. Sure, you could do that even. Not, like, significantly, commensurately, what's the word? Recuperate them for their work, right?
I mean, I
like, this could actually be a way that we create innovation. Just put people in a basement in Amazon headquarters, cage them up, give them very minimal amount of food. If you come up with a great innovation, you can leave. You can live a normal life, right? You could do this.
That's not, you know...
That's what would happen if there was total free markets. Like, you could basically outsource the notion of innovation to people who you're not...
We'd be talking dangerous ideas here.
No, but that's basically what the free market amounts to, without any kind of interventionism.
Yeah, I know. But that's what I'm saying. We should have, like, a worldwide group, you know.
So you want to create an economic system where you're not just basically holding people hostage, because at a low level, that's what Amazon is doing. That's the Marxian way of explaining exploitation. Exploitation of the labor.
They don't care about the
exploitation of the labor is when you are taking the value they create and sucking it up for yourself.
Yes.
So people want to say, like, you should be incentivizing people to do great things with money. Well, under a co-op system, which is a key part of socialism, it's not pure socialism. People call this market socialism, basically. But under a co-op system, you can incentivize people to do good things for the company, to innovate things, to optimize the market, optimize the algorithm that Amazon operates on. And if you open up that space for people to communicate their ideas and incentivize them, reward them, maybe put them, they come up with a great idea, make them like a representative of Amazon to a certain degree, and they can continue to pump out great ideas.
Why have we never recorded our conversations before?
I don't know.
We should have done that later.
Let me keep talking. So when people are doing this, you can keep them relevant once they come up with a good idea. This is kind of like how something like Reddit works, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I talk about this through the framing of my metaverse video, where you can create something like an internet government, you can create an internet-based media where people are contributing, and you allow, you can give Jeff Bezos $1 billion to soak up all his profits, or you could put that money towards incentivizing people within a co-op system So they're actually motivated to give their own ideas, have free speech within a space where you can make Amazon better. And there would be a ton of people who would come up with great ideas this way. It's not far-fetched to believe that if you open up the communication for other people, that they would create great ideas. This happens all the time.
Yeah, I get that. But then, like, who has the right to ideas? Who has the right to, like, profit?
Whoever comes up with them, to a limited degree.
To a limited degree. But
to a limited degree where they don't become Jeff Bezos by coming up with one great idea.
Collective of people, like, contributing.
And let me just finish this by saying, in theory, if you have this space open for people to optimize everything, eventually you reach like a pure socialism. I'm talking purely theoretical. I'm sure people would get mad at me if I was saying this was like a concrete idea. Mm-hmm. But if you do this and you optimize everything so well, I think you create an economy that is like so effective that like everyone's needs are met. No one even worries about anything from an economic sense, and I think this is especially palpable within the paradigm of automation.
Okay.
So I mean, you keep wanting to make a case for Jeff Bezos. Let Jeff Bezos exist, okay? But let people approach.
We're not killing him.
In theory, but let people approach Jeff Bezos or some kind of committee with their ideas, right? Mm-hmm. Let them contribute meaningfully, and also, if we're going to automate things to such a degree that the laborer becomes redundant, there's no real incentive for Jeff Bezos to innovate because he has already unlocked free money glitch via AI. And this is, people feel this at a very visceral level. They feel that if Jeff they feel that if Jeff Bezos has all that power, if there's not a reliance on the laborer, then they are relegated to a lesser class.
Okay, but simultaneously, people should have the right to make as much money as they want.
As long as they're contributing.
Yes, but like, what if like
if they're not contributing, they get the
they get the what? What's wrong with you?
I would say if someone has such a monopolistic control over the economy, over people's lives, that they can just sit and soak up wealth, and they're not accountable for anyone, and there's no functional way to like usurp this person or like make the company repurposed for a greater good, then that's the point where you take out. That's the point where the French Revolution becomes a real thing.
Think about the company that I'm trying to make. We're not going to talk about it. We're just going to, hypothetically talk about it.
Yes, make it very hypothetical, please.
Yes, just don't go into details. It's private. But, like, the only reason that I'm making it, one, is because I can help people. Mm-hmm. Two, is because I can help myself and, like, make money. Mm-hmm. Which is what I want.
Sure, and I'm all for like rewarding you if you come up with a great idea that makes people's lives better.
Which it is a great idea.
But if you have a great idea that makes people's lives better, and then you reach a point where you have monopolistic control over this idea, and you end up making people's lives worse in the long term via your own rights of property over that idea, then you become irrelevant. Like, it shouldn't reach that point.
Yes, but I still should make money.
It basically has with Jeff Bezos.
I should still make money from that idea. I should still make money if I continue to innovate.
If you continue to innovate,
with that company.
But you should never reach a point where you're basically just...
And I should still have, like,
What if... Let me frame it this way. Let me frame it another way.
Yes.
Let's say people were rewarded a great deal of interest just for owning money in a bank account. Let's say like 25% per year or something, just for having money in a bank account. Would you say that that's fair? Like, if someone can just have billions of dollars and just keep getting like hundreds of millions every year for doing absolutely nothing?
I feel like 25% is like a very high amount.
Uh-huh.
However...
But if you say it's high, you're basically conceding that there should be a maximal limit.
I'm not conceding that.
Let me finish. That there should be a maximal limit on what Jeff Bezos makes if he's not contributing.
I'm definitely not conceding that, because he did contribute something. He did contribute something in the past, and that is like enough to have a reason for him to continue.
Can you stop taking my hypotheticals and making them literal?
Well, you're literally
if someone just
talking
owns
about
money,
like an actual person.
If someone just owns something and doesn't do anything with it, you shouldn't reward them for that. That's actually anti-innovation.
But he did do something, and he has.
You're making my hypothetical literal.
Okay, but still, it doesn't matter if it's a hypothetical because everything is situational, and this is the situation we were talking about. If we were talking about something else, then yeah, I might agree with you. But this is the situation that we're talking about.
The functional purpose of being a CEO is not to contribute to meaningful improvement
It's to make company decisions.
It's to make company decisions. You have the investment of capital. That's basically a number in your bank account, which now correlates with a certain amount of interest. And as a CEO, people misattribute this all the time. A CEO does not have a job. Let me make this very clear. A CEO's only job is to have the money to invest in other people having jobs. Outside of that, they don't have to do anything.
But they have to.
They don't have to do anything.
Okay, but once you get the capital investment,
they can
you need to actually
innovate.
do something.
But they can also just pay other people to innovate.
That is true. That is absolutely true.
So unless they're Nikola Tesla, they shouldn't be CEO. Unless they can demonstrate their worth.
I mean, that's why sometimes, like, CEOs get kicked out and voted out.
I don't think that happens very often. I think most of the time they just get to soak up as a parasite the effective interest of their capital investment in the company.
Usually that's why there are company decisions made. And sometimes a CEO has to step down and other people will take over.
Sometimes, but under the free market paradigm, that would never happen. Like, under a pure free market, a CEO, if he loses money, he would not feel incentivized to step down for the greater welfare of the company.
Adam Newman as an example from...
Who?
Adam Newman as an example.
Okay.
They kicked him out, so...
Sure.
Because he wasn't really doing anything.
But, you know, they can do that, but then someone else can come in. If they're not innovating, then they're also a sitting duck, you know. It's just people say that, you know, you have to have a total free market to incentivize people to create innovation. But even demonstratively under the current economic system and paradigm and technological shifts over the last 20 years or so, I would say the people who have actually made innovation have mostly been not CEOs. They have been people who have been independent, maybe even working for like a publicly funded university. Like, this is the case with the iPhone. It was every innovation that went into creating the iPhone. And Steve Jobs did have a meaningful contribution to here. So you could say this isn't like a pure example, but you know, he contributed the aesthetic, right?
Yes.
But how much is a visual designer really supposed to make? Like, really? You know, he could have paid a visual designer to do that. Okay. So, the iPhone...
Are you certain that he only contributed the aesthetic and not, like, the
Yeah, no. Let me finish this. The iPhone, I have this graphic, and I can, like, post a link to this or whatever in the description so that people can see I'm not making up bull. Baba Booey. Everything that went into creating the iPhone, from the touchscreen, any software, any hardware, etc., it was all created by things like military technology investments that happened to create a relevant innovation. It also happened by publicly funded university research programs. So the technology all came together in an eloquent way that I would say, yeah, reward Steve Jobs.
Because he did the research.
Good job. You put two and two together. You gave an aesthetic appearance to it. I'd even say he did a great good just in like the presentation aspect, like being that guy who was capable of being like, "Yo, everyone, look at this great idea! Isn't this a great idea? We all need to buy this thing now."
Yeah.
That's a meaningful contribution. That's what an entrepreneur should be doing. But I want to partially tangentialize and say that I think not only is it becoming increasingly noticeable over time that
they haven't done really
they haven't
anything.
Innovated in a stark contrast to the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Like the PS4 versus a PS5.
There's
Most people can
basically
say,
no difference.
you know, it's better, it's cool, it's nice, but first of all, we already had that technology. We could have made the PS5
Yeah.
around the time the PS4 came out. It would just be more expensive.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like a little bit more optimized to be cheaper now, but we've reached the maximal limit, and people conflate technological growth with alchemy, basically. And alchemy is like a science of the mind, where if you can conceive of it, then you can manipulate some physical principle
Yeah,
in order to
manifest it.
achieve it.
Yeah.
But that's not how technology works. That's not how technology's ever worked.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say with something like quantum computers, I don't think we're ever going to reach a point where the consumer market is going to be able to meaningfully integrate quantum computers. Because all the stuff you have to do to keep a quantum computer running and cooled, like that's very important. You need to keep it from overheating, and that alone costs like millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So you can create like an industrial-based quantum computer, but in terms of consumer viability, improvements in the consumer market, you can't really, I think, optimize it so much that it becomes meaningfully a part of that consumer market. And it's going to become increasingly obvious over time. You know, they might artificially make things in the field of technology better, like they might lower the price of incrementally better things. I think that's what they've been doing to make it seem like innovation has still been happening.
Yeah.
But the way this ties into the greater idea, and I think we should try and conclude this conversation now, is like innovation is finite under this circumstance of maximal technological development, and
I
we're
feel
gonna
like innovation could be infinite.
not technological innovation, not purely technological.
I mean, actually, I think to a certain degree, depending on.
Well, then you have to
fine.
concede that you believe science is alchemy.
I believe that everything is will
And if you believe that
Energy.
science is alchemy, then you believe that you can. Well, the end goal of science is to create consciousness, and I do not believe that's possible under any circumstance, because I do not believe that science is alchemy.
Well, I believe that everything's like either will or energy.
Yeah, but you can't create will with science.
But you can create somebody or something.
You can't create a person without a will. You need to have a will to be a person.
Well, that's where.
To be conscious.
Yes, but we can definitely create, biological things.
You can create something that seems to be conscious, right? That's basically the goal. They want to have humanoid robots
I
that can
feel like we can
fulfill
definitely
that
do
purpose.
it. We can definitely do it.
Create
Sanity.
consciousness?
Yes,
No.
I feel like yes, we can.
Like maybe you can manufacture
In fact, I have
a
ideas
lab?
for this.
like okay. Consciousness can emerge from nature, so maybe we can find the conditions through which nature creates consciousness, but you can't like make a motherboard that becomes conscious. Like
We can literally develop.
motherboards are not the basis for our consciousness.
Okay, we're getting into like another topic that I don't really want to feel comfortable
Well, no,
discussing on here.
I'm just saying like it's the end goal of technology to create consciousness. That's how you reach a point where you can definitively say that science is alchemy. But until you are capable of that, there is always a maximal limit on technology's capability to
Well,
evolve.
I mean, technically, we've always thought that there's like a limit, especially with religion. Well, it goes so far as, people used to think that, like flat earthers, people,
What's the word? Geocentrism.
whatever.
That's when people believed the Earth was the center of the universe.
Yes, that too. But basically, I feel like we can always expand.
But I don't think we have an operative principle right now that is so misguided and so definitively outlined as something like geocentrism.
Well,
We have the observational
okay, but what you're
power
saying that
to
ideas are
confirm or
not-
deny most of our claims.
Yes, but I'm saying that, you thinking that that's not possible, and then one day somebody proving that it is possible, will prove you
Okay,
wrong.
let's bring it back and let me make the point that, like, even if you suppose technological improvement has no maximal limit, I still think there's a functional limit in human creativity, whereby purely relegating the duty of manifesting capital into a particular innovation to someone like Jeff Bezos is not the best way to reach that fullest capacity.
Also, like, going back to, like, quantum computers, we should definitely watch the movie, like, 13 Ghosts, because I don't think we've seen
13 goats?
it. Ghosts.
Ghosts. Oh.
Yeah, goats.
I thought you were going to say, like, 13 monkeys or, like, the men who stare at goats.
That's funny.
I haven't heard of 13 goats.
Man.
That just sounds like
that
straight
sounds
up...
like some horror movie.
Yeah, basically.
Satan is crap.
What was it called again?
13 Ghosts.
Ghosts, okay.
Yeah, we should
that
watch
makes
it.
more sense.
And
Sounds a lot less satanic.
It is kind of satanic.
Oh, okay.
Kind of. But yeah, they have like a quantum computer thing going on, device.
Yeah, like, I don't think this is possible, but let's say that you could create an AI that can be creative in every way that a human can. But again, I don't believe this is possible, because I think to create that you would basically have to create consciousness. But if you could, and someone owned that, they could just free money glitch every innovation.
Have you ever heard of the Basilic project?
Like, that should be a public ownership. If you create something that can create infinite innovation and no human input has to come into that, it just spurs of its own design.
Have you ever heard of the Basilic project?
Let me just wrap up my thought.
Okay.
But in that situation, that should be absolutely publicly owned. There would be no purpose in any justifiable way that Jeff Bezos should own a creative AI that creates all the innovation for him. And let me just again say, Jeff Bezos can pay people in Amazon's basement and torture them to just create innovation.
I mean, currently we do have like art AI and
Yeah, you do, and that's a great innovation.
I mean, we can also
but
have music AI.
that's also capped to exist within certain already established parameters. It can't be creative of its own accord. It can only be creative
based on
within
things that have
certain
already existed.
parameters.
Yeah.
Like, it creates an algorithm for like the way that previous arts have been made, and then it regurgitates that into a system where those pieces fit
It's
together.
randomized, yeah.
And that's a very good thing. Like, I think that we should, like, but let me take that again.
Yeah.
If that happens, and we could just AI create music, and if someone owned that, like, even if you say that, like,
Then technically
on the basis
the
of
AI
them,
program could have the rights.
on the basis of them creating that, they should be rewarded, sure.
Mm-hmm.
But once it's already created, they can't do anything to meaningfully contribute to it, make it better, improve the world.
Yeah,
Therefore, there is no real benefit to the profit incentive at the point they've established that already.
There's an app called like Wombo Art where like you can just like generate like
And I would say at that point, that's when you in the person, because they have no meaningful contribution to society. They are merely exhibiting an authoritarian free market paradigm where, because they have ownership, they have the ability to basically have money and make money off of the concept of having money and nothing else.
okay.
But this is why things like intellectual property are problematic, because like Disney, for example, has tried to make it so that the copyright length of owning Mickey Mouse gets extended, and they've basically bent the law so that they can continue owning Mickey Mouse.
Mickey
And
Mouse.
actually, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that particular instance. This is going to sound very stupid coming from the place of everything I just said. But if someone wants to own the persona of Mickey Mouse, that's not like necessarily a huge like way to like inhibit other people from making meaningful art, you know?
Hi Goofy, how you doing?
Like, suppose they lost ownership of Mickey Mouse and suddenly people just started making like all these parody versions of Mickey Mouse and giving Mickey Mouse a horrible name. Like, they make a Mickey Mouse or something.
Wait, I have a brilliant idea.
What?
Horror Mickey Mouse version.
Sure. Like, I think that someone should be able to, like, submit an idea to Disney and be like, make this Mickey Mouse idea, right?
Yeah.
And they should be able to make money off of that. But, like, because, like, the company, the intellectual integrity of Mickey Mouse is maintained by that patent over his namesake and likeness, like, they should have the creative capability to centralize within their own company the ideological basis of Mickey Mouse.
Okay.
Does that make any sense? Like, I feel like you shouldn't just be able to subvert Mickey Mouse into something brand new just because of a 75-year-old clause that has expired.
I mean, yes, but, like, at the same time...
Like, maybe just make, like, someone who curates the idea of anyone who wants to make a Mickey Mouse version. Yeah, Mickey Mouse something, right? So that, like, you know, there's still some kind of gatekeeping.
I mean, they might as well just go work for Disney and the creative...
Yeah, let like, people work for Disney. This is another idea I have, and that is that we can decentralize creative processes. Do you know the band The Police?
Yes.
So The Police, and I will also shout out to a band I like who's done something similar, but it was less popular, Menomina.
Oh yeah, I remember you introduced me to them.
Yes. Look up the song Evil Bee. It's a great song by Menomina. Menomena. Okay. So the paradigm of these two bands is, and especially with Menomina, because they don't like each other, they actually dislike each other and intentionally avoid meeting up, is that they don't actually network under physical circumstances. They just kind of like have a peer-to-peer system where they create something creativity, ping it off each other, and eventually come out with a finished work. And I think you can do this and create a foundational industry that caters to this, whereby people can just meet up.
Bounce ideas off each other. We bounce ideas.
Yeah, people can just meet up online and in a very decentralized way, resembling a co-op and resembling open source. You can open up a creative highway for people to all around the world contribute to some greater creative project. This doesn't happen today because the only real way that you can get a creative team capable of making like a AAA game is for there to be like an investment of capital in a major company that can bring people to work under a constrained set of circumstances. But there's a lot of research showing that constrained circumstances don't actually contribute to people's meaningful productivity and creativity. Like, there's a lot of resources in this book I'm kind of skimming through called Laziness Does Not Exist. How they say people can only contribute so much of their time per day, and the functional place of the workplace should not be to make them constrained. It should just be to enforce their productivity. And they can only be productive for so many hours. They can only do so much that is productive.
So much focus.
Yeah, and like, you know, if you have people working from home, their productivity does not go down. As long as you enforce a certain standard and a certain level of necessitated productivity and creation, then it doesn't help to have them work in a constrained corporate environment.
I mean, I kind of disagree. I work better like when I'm around people and like I have somebody like.
No, you can work. That's not the point. Like, you can do what you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you should also open up the avenues for other people to do what they want. Who
Yes.
don't work the same way as you.
Yeah, who don't have the same.
Like, the idea that we have to necessitate the corporate environment, this very closed, corporate-centric work ethic, whereby everyone has to come into work 40 hours.
Like, I mean, Elon Musk currently like.
Can I finish my thought?
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I just like to wrap things up before
Yes,
we move
yes.
on. Okay.
I move like too fast with my brain.
Yeah, but you can do that. But again,
Yeah.
like not everyone thinks like you. I need to like
Process.
create like a holistic narrative here
Yeah.
when I'm illustrating a point.
Okay.
So
I feel it.
not everyone works optimally under the current corporate structure. That's just a fact. Like different people work more productively under certain paradigms, certain environments, as opposed to others.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those potential environments is the open source. Basically, you're free to contribute as much as you want, and you are paid for the level of contribution and not how much you just show up to work and put in the 40-hour time card, right?
Yeah, I get that.
And like the way that capitalism is going to crumble, basically, is through people realizing this and realizing there are actually better ways to be more productive outside of the normative corporate ethic.
Yes, but I still encourage capitalism. I still encourage capitalism.
You can do that as long as it's doing good for people.
I mean, I don't think that capitalism has to be all about doing good for some people.
Let me bring back
it's good
it
for
back
you,
to
then
this.
that's good, you know.
This point that I didn't really want to get into is that I don't like to define socialism. In fact, it would be better if we just forgoed all notions of what socialism is and just focus on meaningfully not exploiting people, and that includes the CEO, basically, the person who is in charge of the company. You shouldn't exploit them either. You shouldn't have to, like, this is the Richard Wolff point, which is that you shouldn't have to take away a person's wealth. You should have just properly distributed it in the first place to the people who are doing good.
Yes, but at the same time, I don't feel like we don't really have to define things, you know. Like,
you don't have to define
things
capitalism.
could just have like
This is this autistic mindset. We have to have the free market. We have to have on the other side communism of just like everything decentralized.
Like not everything's just like black and white. We should have like a gray scale, you know.
And I wouldn't even say that it's a gray scale. Like the ideal of socialism should not be a finalized product. It should be a gradual march towards liberating people from the way that a company has outserved its purpose.
We can't take the best ideas of certain ideologies and like implement them.
Let me make this clear. It's not about gray areas. Just stop defining black and white and just create like a positive movement forward that enables both productivity and the end of exploiting people.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And I think the best way to start doing this is, very ironically, an idea that conservatives hold, which is that jobs should be in America. Okay?
Jobs. Oh, yeah.
Like, instead of outsourcing everything, and this serves a common good for the American as well, which is why it's so easy to do something like this, is you don't take out, like, okay, another thing Richard Wolff says that is exactly related to this is always that if there was a co-op, you would never see people, like, giving their own job away, right? People want to have an income, and to have an income, you have to take place.
I've never seen
take part in the job.
Give a job away.
Exactly, but who does that? Who does that is the CEOs. Yeah. They outsource things so that they can pay people pennies to do the same job. And that's what's enabled capitalism to continue thriving right now, is allowing them to exploit people who are basically invisible slaves.
I mean, either CEOs or, like, you know, family members.
Let me give that context so people don't, like, misunderstand me. An invisible slave is someone who is economically, for all purposes, like,
irrelevant.
To the base denominator of human empathy, being exploited, suffering under their contribution of labor.
Yeah. But then that makes them irrelevant because, I mean, that's all they do.
And that person has no voice. They basically have no choice but to work because, you know, the alternative is extreme poverty to the point where you pretty much die, especially in these countries
Yeah,
where
no,
there's
but
there's no
government.
welfare system. There's just, if you have no money, you
Baba Booey.
can die. End of story. That's how it is in places like
China, Cuba,
I wouldn't say China necessarily.
North Korea.
Maybe North Korea. I'm not totally sure about them, but the examples that I would bring up are things like, maybe I'm saying this wrong, mica mines of children.
From the war.
From mica. It's like a makeup ingredient or something.
Oh, mica.
Mica, sure. The children who mine this
Baba Booey.
are paid like $0.25 a day, and they are dying. They are literally dying
Yeah.
under capitalism. There are deaths under capitalism. Believe this.
Yeah, there are.
Like, you want to say communism had deaths? Sure.
That's why you want
There
to
have
make
been
sure that
much
like the
more
things
deaths under
that
capitalism.
are outsourced or like come from a good environment.
Yeah, there needs to be industry regulation, but the hegemony. I have so much trouble saying this word. Hegemony, is that right? Okay, moving on.
Okay.
Of the U.S., the economic hegemony of the U.S. is threatened when you pay people living wages that are in accordance with like the value of the dollar, like minimum wage here, basically. So, if you pay everyone worldwide minimum wage, you enable the worker to have too much power, because there's been a lot of revolutions in different countries all around the world that have basically been for enacting a more leftist government. They haven't always necessarily called themselves socialist, but especially under this paradigm, which I'm trying to outline, which is that a particular definition of socialism is not necessarily important, or I would say even like valid for the necessitation of movements towards a socialist idealized version of the economy. So every time this happens around the world, they basically get cooed. Do you know what I mean? Cooed?
No.
There's a funny tweet Elon made. The 69420 guy, Elon Musk, he made a very funny tweet to someone who said that this nation was cooed in favor of Tesla's profits. And Tesla, being such a funny guy, or I'm sorry, Musk, being such a funny guy, said, "We will coup whoever we want."
Okay.
And a coup, since I guess you don't know what that is a overthrow of the government
Yeah.
through violent means in order to enforce not necessarily an authoritarian regime, but the authoritarian implementation of a particular government structure or politician or leader, etc., who is in favor with hegemonic U.S. control. So this has happened all around the world. I could probably throw a link in the description, sourcing. Well, let me just put it this way. The Wikipedia page for U.S. intervention in other countries,
Yes.
there's a disclaimer at the top of it that says, this article is a very, very long read and may become redundant with increasing contributions to it.
Yes.
So, this is not something that is like an isolated incident, but it's a global trend that the U.S. has tried to keep people like Evo Morales and I'm horrible
Yes,
at
I know what
recalling
you're
names.
saying. I know what you're saying.
But different left-leaning politicians who wanted to do things like nationalize oil, that especially happened in the Middle East, where Michael Parenti talks a great deal about this, how it's not even that they didn't want to sell the oil. It would not have impacted our reserves or even the price, because the only difference would be it would be owned by a company like Shell instead of the nation of Saudi Arabia or whatever.
Okay.
So they were still going to sell us the oil. And we would still get the same gas prices, but because that money that would have been made through that would have gone towards the particular nation that wanted to nationalize the oil reserves, they had to be couped. And this is very well documented. Like, Saddam Hussein was like, basically, I think it was specifically Saddam Hussein. Again, I'm horrible with names and events and years and all that, even country names, unless I look it up beforehand.
Disclaimer, you know no names.
Yeah, I'm bad at memorizing specific things. I can admit to this, and I don't think it's like important to me outlining my point, unless you want to research it yourself. But Saddam Hussein was basically big thumbs up from the U.S. government. We love Saddam Hussein. The U.S. government would say this, not me. Okay, but when eventually. When he kind of turned on them, suddenly Saddam Hussein was like this horrible, evil dude. Everyone was publishing exposés about him, blah, blah, blah. But all he tried to do, I believe, was nationalize the oil. And that was what triggered the U.S. government to be like, nope, you're done. We're putting in a new person. We are coupping you. We are taking over this country. Because we want the profits to go to us, not your country. Even though it's your resources under your land.
Yes.
So, stuff happens all the time. All the time. Happened a ton of times in Latin America.
Let's stay out of politics. Oh wait, your channel is about politics.
Oh, you mean like geopolitics, basically?
Yeah, because I don't really want to discuss that right now.
No, I mean, I'm just trying to outline that this does happen.
There's things that I want to say, but I can't say them.
Yeah, no, all I want to say is that this does happen, okay? It does happen for U.S. interest, against the interest of the nations that want to act in their own self-interest, so that U.S. can maintain economic control and optimize capitalism for itself. And this is basically, if you want to give it the stupid definition, this is a socialist system, because who's funding the U.S. military?
We are.
Yes. So, under this central planning mechanism, we have enforced the free market by preventing other countries from elevating themselves to a level of economic stability and independence.
I wouldn't say we're very stabilized at the current moment.
Well, that's dialectics, baby.
We're literally going through stagflation and inflation right now.
That's exactly what was predicted by Marx. There would be a ton of economic problems as the market fluctuates, as the falling rates of profit eventually normalize, etc., etc. But yeah, the U.S. is not in a great place economically, and China's GDP is going up and up and up and up and up over and over, and has no signs of stopping. There is some debate as to whether China is quote-unquote socialist or not. But again, these are stupid debates, because the only thing that matters...
Doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that the general welfare of common people is enforced. Like, a person, to live a dignified life, should not have to innovate something. They should just have to contribute their meaningful time and capacity to do what's necessary of them to maintain the economy. That's why he says, Karl Marx says, to each...
I like the idea of, like, collective land where we, like, do agriculture, you know?
To each his own means, to each to the best of his ability, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is basically kind of saying, like, you know, if someone's disabled or whatever, they should be allowed to live, because they are doing what they can, which is very little or nothing.
But should they be allowed to reproduce?
Let's not talk about that. Please. I would say yes, but I don't want to... That is a whole other topic, man.
But I am a whole other person.
What?
Yeah, like, you know, I have, like other views about that.
Oh, about natalism or anti-natalism or...
It's not natalism, it's, okay, it was like, Joseph, Mendel, I think, that, like, came up with this. Not Mendel, what is it called? Eugenics.
It took you that long to think of the word eugenics?
Yes! I didn't even, like, find out on here. It just, like, came through my brain.
Oh, dude. But what was there a larger point you wanted to make with that?
No, let's just conclude our conversation. It's like,
Okay. But final thoughts, I would say, like...
you're a potato.
No. I would say...
You're a potato.
Can I, like, make a conclusion statement or something? Jesus, come on.
Conclude that you're a potato?
Shut the
Baba Booey.
In conclusion, I would say, like, you know, you shouldn't define socialism or capitalism and try to move towards either. You should just try to define, like, what is,
A potato.
Shut the hell up. What is the best policy for moving humanity forward in an empathetic way? Like, just the base principles of empathy. Like, think about, like, if people fully understood this process, whatever the process is, would they want to make some kind of change to this? And
Potatoes.
I'm done talking.